So the Lyon, France mission covers southern France, the French-speaking part of Switzerland, and also Corsica, the island of Corsica. The living situations were a little bit different in each of those areas. I never went to Corsica, but I did serve in Switzerland and France. As a Chinese missionary, you can expect to stay in the big cities mostly, and you can expect in those cities to not have a car, and usually not have bikes, but that you will be on public transit a lot, and that you'll be walking a lot. I don't think I knew of a single missionary companionship that lived at a member's home. It was always we had our own apartments. Sometimes in the bigger cities, in my experience, we had 4-man apartments. And some of them, sometimes we had 2-man. You can expect in big cities to do a lot of walking, be surrounded by large crowds of people, and to be on public transit a lot. And it takes a little bit of getting used to be able to talk to someone on a metro or a bus about the gospel. That was one of the harder things for me to get a handle on, but if you're a Chinese missionary, it's just a reality that you need to get used to, that when you're on a metro, you might be on the same metro or bus for a half hour, and that's a half hour gone that you could have used to talk to people if you don't just kind of muster up that initial courage to talk to someone on public transit who probably doesn't want to talk to you. So that's something to be aware of. Be aware that if you get sent to Switzerland, things are a lot more expensive there. Prices are just like crazy in Switzerland because most people have a pretty high income, except you missionaries don't have an income, so you need to watch your spending a little more in Switzerland. There was one area that I served in that had a car. It was the small city of Vitrolles in southern France, and the reason we had a car was because the church building was located in Vitrolles, but the people that would attend that building were from like all the smaller cities surrounding it. Some of them would be an hour and a half away by car probably. So it wasn't one city that we were in charge of. It was like 20. And so if we had investigators and lessons in 2 or 3 different cities in a day, which did happen, we just kind of needed that car. In Corsica, they also had a car because there's literally 1 or 2 companionships and missionaries for the entire island. They actually opened Corsica while I was there before it wasn't open to missionary work. To go between cities, like when you're transferred, usually you'll go by train. There was very few times when I saw when missionaries flew, like the zone leaders were flown from Bordeaux to Geneva, because that's obviously a really long trip by train. I never flew except coming into and out of the mission, but as I was there, they tried to slowly wean the mission out of cars, I think. So more and more companionships that used to have cars had those not be available anymore, and so we're using public transit. And I'm pretty sure now that it's been a year, more than a year since I've been home, that situation has continued and that there are very few cars in the Lyon mission right now.
So the France-Paris mission, it covers the north of France, Luxembourg, and the southern part of Belgium that speaks French. So that's a lot of different area. And then when I first got into the mission, I think there were about 250 missionaries. And then when I had left the mission, there were over 350. And so a huge growth occurred during the mission. And in throughout my first couple of transfers, I think the cities that Sister served in doubled because there was such a big influx of sister missionaries, so that they were able to open up different areas. And with elders too, a lot of elders had came in, so they just really grew the mission. And a lot of cities that only had 1 set of missionaries now had 3 or had 2. And so just all around, the mission just grew and grew and grew. And I remember there had been talk about splitting the mission if they were going to split it, because there are so many missionaries, but it hasn't happened yet. In my mission, there are a lot of languages spoken. Missionaries can be called, everyone has to speak French, but there are missionaries that speak Spanish and Chinese as well. And then people that serve in Belgium, a lot of them speak Portuguese or Spanish. In Luxembourg, there's Luxembourgish, there's a lot of German and Spanish and English. I know that in the western part of France, in Bretagne, there are a lot of English speakers that come from England, and so you'll find every language pretty much. And there's a lot of immigrants. I hadn't really realized that France is the number one, the most populated country in Europe with Muslims. So there's a lot of people that immigrate from North Africa or the Middle East, and then a lot of people from Eastern Europe, so Romania and Bulgaria. So it's really diverse. It's not just white French people that come from Paris. There's people from everywhere. And then in our mission, we don't have bikes. It's mostly just walking and public transportation. Pretty much every city has a good public transportation. They have buses, metros, trams, but half my mission I served in a tiny, tiny, tiny town where we had to have a car because there were just buses didn't exist. And so we walked a lot and took metros a lot. So France is getting a temple, and it's so exciting. It's, I think, one of the last countries in Western Europe to get a temple. And so everyone's really excited about that. The French people are really ready. And when I had first gotten to the mission, we had the church, they had purchased where they were going to build a temple, but there were a lot of complications with it because it's right across the street from the Versailles Chateau Gardens. And so just in the heart of tourist place and just a really good area. And so there was a building that was standing there before that they had to destroy, crash down to build a temple. And so throughout my mission, it was cool to see the progress, because when I was first in the mission in Versailles, there was nothing. There was just still the old building. Then they had to crash it down. And then there were legal things that they had to go through to get the church to be able to build a temple. And then when I left the mission, you can now see the temple slowly building up. And that's really cool, because in just a year and a half to see the progress. And I remember towards the beginning of my mission as well, Elder Oaks came and to do a stake conference to create a new stake. And so people from pretty much all of the central northern part of France were together in Versailles, the Versailles area. And he told them, this temple that's going to be near Paris isn't for tourists, it's for you, the French people. So you guys need to be the ones that are paying the tithing. You guys need to be the ones that will be working in the temple and attending the temple. It's not for people visiting Paris to go to. This is the temple for you, the French people. And so that was really cool. And I think it really motivated the people, the French members, to do their part to prepare to go to the temple, and to also help less actives or their family members or their friends become ready for the temple as well. And so that was really cool to see. And then I remember on my very, very last day in my mission, we have what we call a Péripi Day. And you are just in Paris and with other missionaries, and you can do all the touristy things you want. You can just relax. It's kind of just your last day of your mission, just to enjoy it. And a family that I was really close with in Versailles, where I started my mission, they came and picked me up and took me back to Versailles. And it was really cool to see the temple from when I was first there to 18 months later, the progress and the changes and the excitement. And so I'm excited for the temple.